Okay, today we're going to build a King Midget Model 3. See here the finished product. Check out that steering wheel in there, open windshield. Pretty sharp. Laser cut wood. King Midget badge. Roll that back around. And it's a convertible. King Midget Model 3. Laser cut kit. Okay, so here's the kit. Now generally when you get it, it's going to be in a flat sheet like this, and it's going to have tape on it. Now I used the tape to make sure that the burn marks, you can see there's some burn marks when the laser engraver cuts it on the wood here. And I don't want that to lay back down on the wood. I want the wood for your model and my model to be very, very clean. So I put tape on it. Now that tape needs to be removed, and the easiest way to do that is to start it and then get your fingernail underneath there, and while it's still in this sheet, peel it back. You can kind of scrape your fingernail along that surface there and catch it. It'll take you a couple of minutes to do this, but it's well worth it for a really sharp looking, nice clean model. So then once you've removed that off of this side, it's also on the back side, because you can see here that burn would have stained the wood, and you don't want that. So you remove that off, and then you get all the parts, and I've kind of got them laid out here. They're nested in that sheet when I cut it, so that we can see the so I can get best use of material. So now I've got the parts laid out here, and I'll kind of go through them. We have the right hand side of the body and the left hand side of the body. See the doors cut into here. This one's down so that it's sitting ready to go. These pieces are the fender wells. There's 3 exactly the same for the back, and they will go in those slots. And 2 for the front, 1 for the back side of the fender and 1 for the front side of the fender. And then the wheel wells will go on top of that. Before we assemble it, you'll see that I've also provided some thicker material for the wheels. They're cut exactly the same size, and we'll glue that to the back side, and that'll give you kind of a thicker wheel. You want to make sure you match that up nice and true so that it doesn't doesn't miss or look bad. One of the couple of points here I want to point out. This is the floor pan. Floor pan is going to be viewed upside down for most of the construction phase, because you want that seen when we're done. Floor pan has got a little bit of a taper to it here. I'm not sure you can see that, but unlike, say, this piece of wood where you can see that burn mark all the way across the front of it, this one here I've sanded off just a little bit so that there's a little bit of a bevel, and we'll want that on, so the floor pan is on the bottom side, so the top side of the floor pan where it matches up with the firewall, because these are going to go at a slant. And if it weren't sanded just a little bit, and I just used some 320 grit sandpaper, then this wouldn't set true in there. And you want that, we're going to mount that as a slant, so we want a nice true fit. So take a few moments to make sure that that gets done. There's also going to be some sanding to the top back side of the hood, and very carefully. This is just all single piece thickness of wood here, so this would break if you're not careful. But you're also going to want to sand gently where this cuts in, where this is set here in the front, and where that mating piece is, because again we're going to mount that windshield at a nice little angle coming back, so we want to close that gap. These are extra pieces just in case this windshield breaks. You've got something to put in. Dashboard's extra. if you want to go with true wood. I've got a dashboard here with a steering wheel and a steering column. So that'll all go together and look pretty sharp, but that's an option in case you want just wood and glue, no metal at all involved in it. Although I gotta say, for a little bit of metal that might be in it, that's nice standoff, looks really good. The seat is here, and we'll show the construction of that. It's basically 5 pieces, or 4 pieces, I'm sorry. The 4 pieces for the seat, and then there's this bottom support which will go into the floor pan to hold it up off when we're ready for that. And then we have headlights, tail lights, front, oops, I gotta turn that right side up. We want that badge to look right. The front grille. Here is, let me move these out of the way for just a moment, the back of the car, where the King Midget logo would be sitting inside here, and then the slant down for the engine there. We'll put those together. You'll see those in a few minutes here. And then the hood, the convertible top. Convertible top also needs to be sanded carefully. And again, it's, let me turn the camera here a bit. These edges, because of the way they're going to go together, you can see they're coming at it's not a right angle. So a little bit of a taper to the top of the window, a little bit of taper to the back of the top of, here, so it's going to come together when these pieces of wood come together here. There's going to be a bit of an angle you want to it. So looking at the inside, we're going to have, so again, some 320 grit sandpaper. You're going to glue these 2 pieces on, and then this one last, so you have a little bit of, finessing if you want to do that. So there's the components. So we have the front bumper and the back bumper. On these, you're going to notice when you broke them out of your sheet that there's a really nice wood cut to the side all the way around it, except for that little tab right here where it was connected to the sheet. Most of the time, if you watch what you're doing, you'll never see that again, because we're going to make sure it's on the inside of the car. And I'll show you some assembly parts here in a moment. Here's a gauge to make sure that when you put the firewall and the windshield on, they're nicely angled. So, alright, let me move the camera. Okay, so here we've got some, I'll call them sub-assemblies. The left side of the car, and I was mentioning a moment ago about tabs. You can see where the tab is on the inside of the car. I left that little tab. I mean, it's not quite as noticeable because we sanded everything to make sure, a little light cleaning up after we got it out of the sheet we ship with. But here you can see it's really a nice, clean, crisp. You can see there's no tab on it, so there's no distraction to the assembly. And these are the assembled wheels, which upside down you can see those discs were inside, bound the back side there. And they're set into those slots. Again, you can assemble the fenders on the side of the car where you can see the door cut into it. They're notched in. There's no engraving on the front of this. We move these out of the way for a moment. So the wheels and the fenders were assembled on the outside of the car because you want to be able to see that door when we're done. So we have these 2 sub-assemblies. Another sub-assembly is the floor pan, and I'm going to turn that over because you can see there's the engraving on the bottom talking about what the car is. Firewall set up there, and the firewall was set into place using this gauge to set it perfectly, and the seat support. The seat is set up on here the side. We've got that little piece of wood is set on the top. Little piece of wood was set on the top, and the seat itself was put into the front. Make sure these are opposing to each other. This is sticking out the back, and this is out the front. Otherwise, it won't fit right. And when you get the convertible top on, it won't set in there very well. So there's the seat, assembled, ready to go. The dashboard, I went with the steering wheel and the steering column, so that's offset, and you can see that looks pretty sharp. I positioned that steering wheel, with the crossbars down, makes it look a little bit, trimmer. Let's see. And then here's the assembled convertible top. And you can see here, if we hadn't have cleaned those edges up a little bit, they would have not been, neat and trim across there. And again, that was sanded in. You can see the inside where there's a bit of a gap. So there's those components, and then in the general area of it, again, we've got the back of the car. The two back pieces are sitting here, ready to go on. A little bit of a taper to them. There's no need to taper anything on the front of the car, and that's it. So we'll do. It shouldn't take very long to glue this up. So we'll get to that page, and then once these are set, it'll be very quickly to assemble the car. Okay, so we've got the body and the floor pan and the back of the, let's see, the floor pan with the seat support here. And here is the firewall, the hood, the trunk lid, and the back with the King Midgets on here on this top piece, and the other back piece flares down, it's bare. And you can see that there's a nice fit here because I just a little bit of sanding where these touch so that they go together well. I'll turn this a little bit so that we can see those components again. So here's the, it says, King Midget, and we'll tighten this up in just a second. This is still wet. The glue is still wet. I just put this together because we're going to then glue the other body on and make sure everything's square and tight in there. Other side. So we made up that assembly, the floor pan and the like set up. So now we're going to go and we're going to put some glue on it. We're going to put this together, and your car will be coming together quite nicely. Okay, so here's the car kind of set up. I've done a few things to it since we last looked at it. I've got the dashboard installed, and the dashboard setting through there. You can see the assembly. I'm going to turn it over so that you can see that nail comes through, and it makes a really nice attachment point for it. So we've got the dashboard installed, seat bottom in there. The support for the seat is ready to take the seat, and we made that up earlier. It was part of one of our sub-assemblies. I'll glue that in a moment, but it goes in there nice and snug. When you put that in, you're going to want to make sure that the seat sits down, that this top, the top of the seat here, touches the top of the back trunk lid, because otherwise your canopy top, your convertible top's not going to fit on it quite right if you don't do that. So this has been also some work that's been done to it. Is one of the tail lights is on there now. So we've got that put together, and we got one of the tail lights on. In order for the tail light to fit nicely, I took a knife and I just relieved the back side of it just a little bit, the top of the trunk lid, just a little bit right there, so that when you put this on, it sets nice and smooth. Again, it's setting at an angle to the trunk lid, so if you don't relieve it, it won't set nice and tight in there. Got the back bumper in place. So I got the back bumper in place right here. This is a kind of an attention to detail. When it was in the flat part kit, we sent the tabs that hold it in place are here, little white spots. So I put those down so that when we look at the top of the bumper, it's all nice and uniform across there. The other thing that I've done is I've added the front plate, the front of the car. Got our badge in there, little, you know, the turning indicator lights, setting it at a slight angle. I put one of the headlights on, and the headlights are, you can see it's bare on the back, but on the front of the headlight, it's got the ring in it, so you can, you know, kind of shows the headlight. And again, here I've got the front bumper on, and so that's pretty much ready to go. Since I hadn't glued the seat in, fell out. Set that in. So here's what the car is going to look like. We have one more. I've got the headlight here and the tail light. We've got the detail here. I've assembled these two parts to the convertible top. So we've got the top, the window in there, and this will set in here. And again, sets in. I haven't finished sanding it to fit, but it'll pop into here and set down. But there's a slight bevel to this edge here and on the other side here, so that when this goes in there and rests down against those two other parts, it makes for a nice tight fit and doesn't have a, you know, a big gap in it. So we're going to put that on. There's this little notch right here. See if we can see that little notch right here. And that goes on the back of the seat when the car is assembled. Oop, the windshield's not on it yet. Anyway, that'll go into the back of the seat when the car is assembled. And that will make a real nice, comfortable fit in there, really clean and neat looking fit. So we'll go put the windshield on, and the car will be done. I'll take another picture of it here in just a moment. Alright, so now we have pretty much a finished car. It's all fixed up. You can see here we've got the other headlight on there. The windshield is in place, and we use this gauge right here to make sure that the windshield is at the right angle. That's the same gauge we used on the firewall. So that looks good. We've got the other tail light on there, all squared away. Glued in place, it looks pretty sharp. The seat's down. And we made sure that the bottom of the car is set like it's supposed to be, so we can always pick it up and say, oh, it's a King Midget. And set this just like that. So we've got the finished top, see all the components, and that sets right down. See here where it sits right behind the seat and over the front windshield. And there's the King Midget. You can pick the year. I figure it must be a 1969 because that's what I own. So there's 1969 King Midget convertible top. On nice days you can leave the top off. What I used to assemble this, I used some 320 grit sandpaper to, you know, relieve the edges a little bit so that these odd angles fit better. And I used a glue toothpick method where you just put a, you know, squeeze a drop of glue out onto it and then carefully apply a drop of glue to the joints and seams as it goes together, and it as long as you know you hold it pretty good and it goes pretty quick. There you go. King Midget.